So this is June 8th. I'm basically replaying what had opened with ES, how the market had opened. So basically, I have the NQ here. I've been playing around with the NQ for a couple of days now, mostly the micros. As you can see, I think I had a position on micro ES with some sell orders. Basically, kind of wanted to play the short side because the open occurred on NASDAQ here, came in, touched the time point of control of the previous day. So for me, that was a short bias, and I kind of missed taking some profits on it, but I don't think it wasn't a huge position at the beginning. So what I'm gonna do is this is actually 2 hours of recording from my screen, which obviously I'm replaying it now so that I could share this through YouTube. I'm gonna try to put this into a maximum 25 to 30 minute video. So I got into some heat on my NQ position initially. It's again, I was kind of distracted with my son this day just because he wanted to go out and I was trying to trade and it wasn't obvious. So always, always, always monitor your risk. Okay, here is my um, information here just to make sure you guys always have to need to monitor risk at all times. The thing I do with market profile is it gives me zones and what I'm looking for. Like I've already discussed in previous videos on YouTube. I was looking at this 98.16. You're gonna see this 98.16 pop up so many times today. You're gonna find how that area has really been an inflection point. So basically, as you can see, I'm kind of like removing all these stops because I'm not down big here. It's basically micros that just got away from me, and I noticed that we're probably going to get to that 98.43. I could have cut this short of much faster, but it's because, like I said, I got distracted with my son, and it was an area to see how the market would react. I was seeing that the ES was doing nothing. This was one thing that oh 07 was an area where ES was basically not doing much above that, and that kind of gave me a bias where I know that ES not doing much, the tape isn't doing major moves as well. I said to myself, you know what? Let's gradually scale in to micro NQs, and I still have MES short because I came in with a short bias from the overnight, and I had some orders in, and like I said, I got distracted at some point. What happened here is I saw that we're basically going to see a shift here. It's going to be very clear, especially in this video here. I'm gonna show you guys how I basically manage this position, but the trade worked out very well here. All right, so let's just see if I can fast forward a bit. I had, like I said, I was talking, but I noticed that I totally screwed up with the recording of the video, so I'm kind of basically going back over this now. So I was typing in the inflection points that I'm seeing here, and that 98.27, and also that same TPOC that had failed already. So I believe I'm already short a couple of contracts. So you're probably going to see how I'm going to manage that right away, because I think I'm short more than 6 or 8 contracts here. I don't have the amount exactly by hand, but that about top of my head here. But the 98, 16, 17, that previous TPOC failing here. I'm seeing sellers gradually coming in. ES is still floating in that same level, nothing majorly negative. So that this day ended up really good. I posted it on Twitter. So we are June 8th, 2020. I ended up with an $874 day, mostly green. I mean, all my trades were good. Basically, I went over this trade here is going to become a tremendous one. We're going to have to wait it out a bit, but this ended up becoming a really good trade because the reason is it's basically the open inside yesterday, the previous day's area, and also if I can show you, like, now the timing is 2:52 p.m. as that period, you see the A period opened in the same range as the previous day. So that previous day was Friday, and it really flushed down. You're gonna see it now. At the end, I'm gonna basically show you guys how this day ended up, June 8th, 2020. Again, failing 28.16. That was that level. Yes, we did shoot up 15 points there, but with the micros, it's not too bad. 98.20, 98.12, 98.16. These have been like inflection points. Now look at this, 98.12. It's gonna be very quick. Wow, the sellers took all over it. Came in. I even added some there, and look, all of a sudden we're in great profit. Like I said, this trade alone went for like more than 400 bucks. It was a great trade because we had tremendous momentum right off that 28.16, 28.17 area. We went up, yes, we tested it and then flashed back down. So that was a really good trade. If we just continue here quickly, that same trade, so we're still rotating in the previous day's range. And I took some notes here. I will leave on screen, leaving 2 to 6 runners on my micros with stops. So like I said, I had totally forgotten about this. So here we are, again, continuing that short bias. I left some runners on my micro NQ there. So this trade again was the trade of the day for me. Left that runner and had some trouble with the micro ES here, but as you can see, ES is not moving much and NQ is just going down. That was a really good trade for NQ. I believe the trade on NQ went all the way down to 97.46. So we're at 9,800 here. This area I saw big bids come in, so I had noticed that on my depth of market. 97.87 became an inflection point for me. 97.87. So basically, if I was in front of the screen and not concentrating on my son, I would have added some positions in here. I would have been a bit more aggressive. Unfortunately, I, you know, I could have played the long side on this, but anyway, it would have been a nice move up. It's tough getting not interrupted when you're recording stuff, so sorry for that. Again, once again, here I left the screen on with these positions so that ES positions stopped out, and I'll show you the profits at the end of the day. So that position stopped out, and just I mean, basically I wasn't in front of the screen to get this going, but I went to play tennis with my son at the same time, so it was like I'll just keep the runners going, and you know, if it works, it works, and it's the micros anyway. But my trade idea was good, and it really did flush down, you see. All right, so if we continue with that same NQ position I had, sorry, I got interrupted a couple of times here. So basically, that short is still on here, and I've got one runner going, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna stop out. And so this is June 8th, 2020 again, and so far that short I had in NQ worked well, and also on ES. I'm just going to fast forward a bit just to go over several other ideas I had today. So here B period opened, and basically we're at 97.56, and the market has still continued going down, and I still have that runner, which has definitely been a great move. This is the profile around the close now on NQ. If we basically look at that first basically that first time frame, and then B period just flushed all the way down, which was the nice trade to go with. Basically, me leaving that runner is the main concept, main idea that I left it go. I just felt that once again, that zone I had identify from yesterday was the area I wanted to look into shorting, and that was a really, let's say 98.17 to all the way to 97. What was it? 97.46, the low of B period. So you see my runner is still working there. Okay, so basically C period opened, went down, tested lower, and it climbed back up. So that was the area here, 97, 86, 85. If I can show you it on the profile here, was the area I was looking at from the area that was that had sellers being shut off. I just want to show you that it was the same single print that we had on June 5th. That same area was the target where I wanted to see if market would explore lower than that and come back. So I mean, again, these things do work, and we've had, very good rotations here in Nasdaq, especially on the first couple of periods. As you can see now, I went into the red here with this NQ position, just because for some weird reason I did not have a stop in place. Well, it's not no reason. It's because I let the runner go, but I forgot to adjust my stop. You see, these are little things that you always want to make sure you don't get into trouble with. That kind of, adjust your stops. And if you're in profits, always take profits, and have one or two runners. That's my concept. That's always something that I like to look into. That's how I always want to play around with it. The reason why I didn't just close this, because I wasn't in front of the screen. When I came back, I said to myself, okay, what's the market doing? It's rotating. So I didn't want to just take a decision based on emotion, seeing, oh, I'm red, oh, I'm in the negative, what's going on. So if we look at the position here, I'm adjusting. uh, what happened is I looked at the 98.12. This was an inflection point I had seen, so I added some shorts there. So I started putting my targets to gradually close my positions. Again, I'm constantly looking at where most trade is occurring. As you can see, this 98, how do you call it, the 98.86 had big offers here. I just scrolled that in. So that was big bids coming in, and also I saw the area where the market stopped there at the 98.12, and I added some in. So I'm showing you the screen here to give you an example of what I look for when I'm trading. Basically, here I'm explaining it that, you know, that same 98.17 and 98.12 was an area I wanted to look into shorts. With Nasdaq, the thing is, you always want to give yourself at least 5 to 6 point buffer, because this thing can move fast pretty quickly. So I don't want to just adjust stops, and it's still adjusting the stops according to decent supply and demand areas, and not basically just randomly putting your stops in places. Again, if you're in a trade and you're already profitable, you can start taking from profits at certain levels, where I like to go for, I don't know, money targets. If I like to make 200 bucks, I'll try to make, buy or sell at that level, just to get some profits in, and then gradually adjust the stops. Here again, I was thinking that the market is still in rotation mode. And the other thing I don't want to forget is, I'll put it up right away. The ES had not basically broken its initial balance in C period. You get it? And looking at that, I said to myself, okay, we still have a balanced profile, a balancing market. It's still rotational. And I remember at the low of B and C, we had a poor low. You see how poor lows are not 100% accurate. It's exactly what I'm explaining here on the ES chart here on the video. And I just put up the ES, how do you call it, the ES profile there. So that's D period starting. And again, nothing, I'm always trying to add at these levels if I'm going to be still continuing with the trend. As soon as this low volume node, the 9807s, I believe this is the area where I said to myself, okay, I think sellers are still in control, because buyers are not able to get above this oh 07. I think they shortly go over it, and then they still uh, don't manage to really take control. Yeah, I got into a bit of red here. I mean, it was a bit of heat, but again, I said to myself, look, I know what I'm trading. I know this. I know how NQ reacts to these zones. It's all about really identifying areas that you really want to do business. All right, so that same I went and closed that NQ trade with a profit. Okay, I'm gonna show you the how you call it, the trade at the end of the day after. It was basically third, if I'm not mistaken, that NQ trade ended up giving 192 bucks. It was okay, and then went into this buy with how you call it, with NQ. So I'm trying to add at certain levels, but I noticed that this 9816 became again a serious issue for NQ, and I think I'm gonna basically scale out of this position pretty fast. My internet's lagging, so it's giving me all kinds of disconnect notes here. Give me 2 seconds. So yeah, I kind of let this one kind of, it wasn't the best of trades here, but I'm resetting to see if buyers are still in control at this 98.12, because I had identified that as an inflection point to see how that goes. You see, I mean, ES was not moving much, and I was seeing like mostly green coming in ES. You see here, like the 292. Yeah, that was a really big blocks came in. So those blocks kind of like reassured me that I should still be on the long side with this trade. And here, and I let this go, and I was putting notes because I think this is the moment where I came back and kind of like readjusted my stops with this one, because I was like, okay, I've been through this a couple of times today, so not being in front of the screen and kind of like not monitoring this is where sometimes micromanaging isn't all that good. You have to trust your process. I mean, me, my process, the way I think, the way I see markets, all this really, to be honest with you, it's something that I kind of like adjusted and got into really learning it only within I I'd say 3 months. It took me around 3 months to really understand what I'm looking for, how I want to trade, and this NQ position kind of mismanaged a bit. But I mean, once you're in profit and you have your stops, kind of like let it run. Keep a runner or two. And I was telling myself, if it just doesn't crack the high of day here, I'm not gonna mess around with it, because I think it's still rotational. And the fact that we've got this low volume node around this 9820, we're having a hard time. And if I'm not mistaken, I had seen, I'm gonna put little notes in this later on, but this 9820, the 9833, these are levels that are gonna always pop out, especially on the dome, because I saw that the big guys were putting positions there. With the micros, you generally have a good feeling of these levels and how these levels will react, especially if you see the big, how you call it, the big positions like the 200 lots and all that. So that same NQ position, I'm explaining what I'm seeing on ES, because ES was about to break the initial balance high there and rotating around that, but it was weird because ES, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, you see my NQ is still going through and it's not breaking the initial balance high. The initial balance high in NQ is here. ES was breaking it, but gradually coming back to, and then this trade just turned out to be a great one, because I mean, I managed it well, and nothing. I mean, I was able to be profitable on this one. And all my trades were profitable, except that one or two of them I took some heat. So I'm just gradually going back, and it's that same level. That 28.16, the previous day's TPOC, time point of control, has definitely been an issue here. I don't really trade the VWAP a lot, but it's there. So I mean, if you wanna take that as context, maybe that's why this was not the market wasn't going through. But I haven't really been able to get a good feeling for VWAP with my trading, honestly. Mostly order flow and market profile nuances, areas that I want to do business, have been my go-to trades. So here I got a bit distracted because I had a position on and I was actually doing a coaching session with someone. And again, when I recorded this, I noticed that I made an error with the recording with the voice, the sound. So here, this is what I'm explaining here is I've got negative delta starting from the top of this bar, and it's starting to get into like an area where it kind of like gives me an idea of like, okay, there was decent selling off this area, the 3212, and sellers are stepping in. I also have this high negative delta and this positive delta that kind of like gave a range here. So for me, that's a footprint nuance where I basically tell myself, okay, there is a battle in this area, the 20, 32, 12. I mean, just give it a couple of points there. There's a battle here, right? And I saw the negative from the high start. So that pullback candle here, this is a pullback candle that tells me that from the high of this, we had negative here. And from the high of this candle, we're having negative. So we've got a battle going here. Just the fact that, and that's the market close at 4 p.m. So here, that basically is an area where I know that there's going to be a fight. That's how I basically see that. And that's exactly what I was explaining to the trader in our coaching session, how I try to look at the 30-minute footprint and, so that same NQ position is still on. I still have a runner. I put my final stop. I think it's one NQ left there. So it's micro basically. And at the same time, I'm glancing to see what ES is doing. So nothing fancy on the ES side there. So in the coaching session, basically, we covered with the trader exactly what I look at. He was telling me that he uses market profile a bit, but he's still new with it, and he's not familiar with everything and is not able to incorporate everything of market profile into his trading as of yet. So that's pretty much what we had gone over. And at the same time, I was going over how I use the tape here, how I look at the meters, and also the jigsaw dome that I'm using here. And it's always about market profile and its nuances and what levels I've been seeing. So basically, for me, coming into this, if we look at this period here as E period starts, for me, the way I was looking at this is we need buyers to lose control below. I was saying to him that I want to see buyers lose control below a certain level. And that's for me like the stepping stone of like, okay, is there anything important happening? And that area was that 97, 97, 98 area. It was this low volume node where I had seen 97, 98, right? So it's this area here that I had seen that the buyers basically took control off of that. And if ever this would become a supply and we would get prices trading below that, that's where I would kind of like change my bias. NQ being very rotational and liking to be rotational with these big volatility swings, it's easy to make money with the micros if you know exactly what you're doing. So that's what I was explaining to this trader, saying that how I use the conjunction of all of this. So basically here I had spot to the trader that I had noticed that we had unfinished business at the highs here, and those unfinished business were basically areas to look for, look for an area to target when you're trading. Not all the time will that be exact, but it's still a good part of what I do and what kind of trading ideas I get from the market profile. Here I'm explaining how I take notes on the jigsaw dome. I've been putting notes, identifying areas that I want to do business. So I have this O1, the O7s, the 12s, the 96, 97s here on NASDAQ that definitely gave good opportunities to go do some business. And here I'm adding into my micro here. I'm taking a trade because I'm thinking that this 97, 98 area will hold as a good buffer to give me a good area to buy. And as you can see, sellers are, look, they're coming in, but they can't move price lower. So I said to myself, all right. And same thing on ES, nothing really major. At some point, I do mention that if ever, if this was to really go a bit around to the 97, 98s, I might reassess to see if I'm going to still keep with this bias. But nothing major happened here, and the buyers took control. So basically, I continued with this trade and to just basically go over how we managed it, as we basically had a good position in it here, and we were able to give it a good, most of my trades don't last very long, but if I play the micros, I want to scale in and I want to basically add into the positions, and that's where I'm playing like value hunting. I want to see where buyers are coming in and where sellers might want to basically take targets, take profits. So these are the kind of things I do with the micros sometimes, and this position really was great because you mean I noticed that this O1 to O7 would be the range here. I'm playing this range, and we're gonna see how you see I already put my stops in, and I'm gonna leave a runner in it. And then I went onto the chart and wanted to explain to him, I don't really trade with Fibonacci's, but I wanted to make sure that this was clear. Fibonacci traders, when I see them, their strategies failing, this is where I tell myself that, okay, really, we really might have a good rotational trading strategy to be emphasized. Because with this swing down, normally Fibonacci traders will want to kind of like sell at this 38 to 61, anywhere in these areas. And after this swing, when we came back into that area, that's where boom, like, okay, we were not able to get a decent sell-off from these areas. So I said to myself, we're probably going to have to do that, and emphasize the fact that this is most likely our trading range kind of day, rotational day that we're going to be in. So I did the swing low, swing high, and then just wanted to show him how normally these areas would be sellers wanting to take control, but then the buyers seem to have stepped back into this area. And Fibonacci traders, I mean, if you're not putting order flow into your positions, I think it's going to be tough to be sustainable, to sustain profitability in the long run. Here with the micros, again, that 0.8 area, I'm trying to add into my position now, because now I'm really confident that I'm on the right side, and I see buyers just pushing in with blocks. Same thing on the ES. Look at these blocks coming in. So I said to myself, okay, I need to add into my micros here and really turn this into a nice trade. And it did end up becoming a good trade. So if we just continue basically advancing here, you'll see that the trade ended up very well. So my NQ position all the way up to 98.26 was great, and I scaled that out. I think I had a runner, and I gradually increased my stops. So I was just showing him my ES slow time frame. This is a 20-second chart. So this is the kind of chart you need if you don't have a good eye for the dome. You need to have very quick time frames charts, 20, 15 seconds, 35 seconds. I was explaining that to him, and basically looking at, look, this low volume area got sold off. This low volume area didn't hold. So you're gonna have to, assess and basically look at how you want to trade. But I was just noticing here, I have the profile, and I'm seeing this high volume node, like a lot of trades being met at that O7, because that O7 was an inflection point that I had identified. In this area, I'm explaining how I treat single prints. Basically, for me, This is an important nuance for market profile as it indicates a shift in supply and demand. When you get a decent upthrust and the market is basically not able to come back to retest that breakout, these single prints generally act as good areas to really lean on for a bias. And the single prints are like intraday gaps where they occur, and the fact that they fill quickly or don't fill, these are real important things to consider, because when a single print occurs, this is a single print here. Now I'm just gonna stop the video here and then come back to my the market profile of the close here. It's 4:11 p.m. and you see M period has just busted out on NASDAQ here, and we've got a decent single print that got filled here. So that 98.30 is kind of like a hidden zone for me to make sure that bulls don't really lose control up below that. And at the moment, as you can see here, we had a single print, this little area here, that got filled but got developed. So again, I'm color coding these because I want to make sure that I see these areas, and these areas for me are like bias zones, and I just want to see that, okay, buyers are able to hold above this. They've basically developed time above it, they've developed volume above it, and most likely bulls are still in charge. If we go into the ES profile, it's slightly different because it still has a single print here that has not been filled. That is tremendous here. Not being filled. The M period was very strong. Copy this, put that in there. I'm just going to put it here. Single print, I still want buyers above this to be in control. So that's 32.12. And I always put, I always draw my M period when they, especially when we have a probe like this where the market ends above it, in a probe with the M period. That's an important inflection point for me to see. Just to emphasize single prints, I was explaining here again how these previous single prints in previous days, even if it's overnight, how the market rotates around these levels, all these zones that I had. This was the teapot from a previous day, which the market, basically traded above it a couple of times and then flushed. So that for me became an inflection point. And then when the market came back and reassessed and retouched that, and still kept holding it, that's an important detail. Here you see, I was basically explaining to him that this overnight single print that occurred here, I just go back and take notes from that, and I want to see how this market, the 98.63, when we get there, how the market reacts at this level. And if you really want a really good live example how these areas become really important, again, this is with experience and over time that I've noticed that, look at that same 98.43 I had identified Friday, and that single print from the overnight, this is the area here. You see the market float around that area for 2 or 3 time frames. This is how you really have to identify these hidden areas that, this is where you want to, it comes with experience, right? It's with looking at the market profile more and more and often. That's why I always tell myself that I have adjusted market profile and volume profile and customized it into the way I like to see the markets. Not to say that I'm a genius or I've got the recipe for how markets work, but with time, I'm always gradually going back and seeing these hidden zones, and I identify this area with the trader to say, look, from here, shorts got shut off because it was a single print here where we were not able to trade much. So the day continued, and we basically still had, if we just go back, that same long position with NQ, and it was decently pretty obvious what was going on with the order flow uh, today. So the last position of the day, the last trade of the day, I had the a runner go on NQ. Basically, you're gonna see what goes on with this position. With this one, it was a really nice play. Here we are. We're gonna get that breakout on NQ. That's gonna occur. I believe it's the I period. Yes, we're in the I period here, which is gonna be a great breakout. And the market conditions were showing that this would happen today. Again, we had the 18, 17s, we had the 01s, we had great opportunities to go long. And I said to myself, 98.28, if this area holds, I'm going to keep this bias and not close this position. That's exactly what I was explaining here to the trader, as this was basically a coaching session that we were going over. And I kind of missed again. I screwed up with the recording, but that's why I'm recording this now, just to cover the important nuances. Just when I was explaining to him what profile areas I look for, and we were going back several days, and looking at how market played around on May 20th with these single prints. How these single prints become areas of like market conjunction, and it really gives you areas of where to add and where to take a bias, the breakout. So we had the breakout that came in, and I told myself, all right, for me, this is going to be a single print here. Just want to pause the video here, because for me, that single print, even though we came back and filled it, it just showed me that buyers are still around and want to do business at this level. Even if they filled it here, sellers are not able to take control. So buyers need to maintain, for me, like in that short period at that time, that 98.38 is 31 is a good bias for buyers to control. And if you look at the breakout, I'm asking the trader, what should I do with my stop? Should I just leave it there? And he said, look, put it at a one tick below 54 or 55 bucks, to manage the trade. And and now you guys are going to see this breakout occur. I was playing around with the notes here, trying to take notes, and you know I was going over how I take notes and put texts all the time. But that 98.43, same level that I had identified the market stop, right there again. you know So that same one runner, I put the stop to 98.47, because the market did go over those big sellers at the 43 area that I had identified, and you could see the tape giving us blocks coming in NQ. Buyers are all over this. I put a stop here at that level. And this trade was a nice one, because I was able to end the trade with a good profit here. So this is how the market ended the day. M period just gave out a blast. ES was good. NQ also had great volatility throughout the day. I mean, this is really good trading. And if you're able to capture good moves, good swings like this, you could make decent money. So this is how I ended the day. Rotational at good chunks. I had kept a couple of micros, and it was a decent end to the day. I just want to scroll, because I think we won't have the whole full picture here. This is pretty much how my day ended here, and the end of the profile. So this was June 8th, 2020. uh, I traded, and at the same time had a coaching session with a good trader who wanted to review what we could look at on market profile and the nuances. So I'm preparing again several videos like this to go over levels and how I trade and what I look for. So basically, I trade off, you know, um, the micros here, and use a jigsaw to filter out the dome levels, and how I could see the footprint here. This is the day's end, so it's after hours now, and hopefully these videos could help, because again, I'm doing them on a very randomly. Topics are not all the time very clear, but it's basically to go over certain areas. I'm going to do a market profile basics video, where I'm going to cover what I look for and what are important zones for me. And this way, these videos could help. And again, please do not forget that trading is all about risk management and knowing what you're doing. So these are my contacts. Make sure you hit me up and you guys support if you like them, and we'll also send me messages and we could do reviews together. Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions and need assistance with Sierra charts or any kind of chart book inquiries. So don't forget, this is strictly educational and futures trading is risky. Please seek professional advice before making any trading or investing in decisions. Hope this helps. Enjoy your day.